Come visit the magical cottage today and we'll get together in my witchy craft room and I'll show you how to make one of these really adorable witchy Halloween Samhain wall hangings. So this is my little Bridget goddess wall hanging that I created. She'd be great to put up for in bulk or anytime you want to honor Bridget. This is a little Yule goddess with her holly and her berries. This is a moon goddess. I've got the triple moon up there and a little moon charm on her dress. Where is it? On her necklace, sorry. Yeah. You can add little charms to these things and dress them up however you want. And here's a little ocean goddess. Kind of a mermaidy theme here with her little shells and blues and turquoise and purple colors. And these goddess wall hangings are all available in my Etsy store. And I will post a link to my Etsy store in the description of this video. And if you choose to just purchase one of these, you can. But today I'll show you how to create one of your own. Okay, so I'm going to start out with showing you what your supplies are that you're going to need to make your little goddess wall hanging. And you're going to need an embroidery hoop, but you're only going to need one part of it. Okay, so you separate the two wooden hoops, and there's a little dealie at the top here that you loosen, and you can get the embroidery hoop apart. These are really easy to find. You could possibly get one in a dollar store. And you can make actually two of these projects with the embroidery hoop. And this little screw will come out. And if you don't want that big bulky screw up there, and you can, instead of having the screw there, you can just use this hole and put some wire through it to join it and make another project. So I'm just going to put this aside for now, and I'll be using this hoop. And I think this one is about a 8-inch hoop. You can make these any size you want. Just scale down the materials, the fabric, whatever, the strips. You know, maybe you'll need more yarn, but you can make it any size you want. So here, I think this is 8 or 9-inch hoop that I used. Okay, so you got your embroidery hoop. You're going to want some yarn that's going to coordinate with the other colors you're using. Since I'm doing one for Samhain or Halloween, I chose black, but orange, any color that you want, it's up to you. Okay, the gauge on the yarn, this one is, I'm probably going to need a little bit more of it because it's kind of skinny. Some of the yarn is fatter. I wouldn't use like a super bulky yarn for this because you want it to be smooth, okay? You want it to lay flat. Some remnants of Halloween fabrics, and I happen to have lots of Halloween fabrics for making quilts and other projects, and so I would only pick 2. So I'm kind of leaning towards just using these 2 skeleton ones. I do have more of this fabric, but I think I'm going to have enough, and I'll show you how to cut the strips for this. Okay, so I think I'm going to go with these ones. It'll be more like a Day of the Dead sort of thing. You're going to want some raffia, and the raffia often comes all folded up like this, but it will it will unfold and you'll be able to use it. This probably is the trickiest part of the whole project. So I will be showing you how to use the raffia to make the body of the goddess or god, if you decide to make a god. And it's similar to creating a corn dolly. And I have done a blog post on making corn dollies on my website, The Magical Cottage, and I will put a link to creating corn dollies in the description of this video, along with a link to my Etsy store. If you decide you'd like to buy one of the wall hangings that I've already created, then that's just great if you want to do that. But let's see, I also have some ribbon here. Sometimes you can buy bunches of Halloween or Yule or whatever season ribbons, and I happen to find this on sale, or any kind of a leftover ribbon. The satin ribbon is nice because of the way it hangs. Okay, so I have these ribbons. Plain black would be fine if you wanted to use that. I have a little witch's hat here that I thought would fit right on her head. And I have this little pentacle pendant, and you can buy these in packages like this online. Very easy to find, all different sorts. So I thought this one would probably go and show up nicely. And then this is one of my favorite crafting project supplies, and I believe it's called bind wire. It's a floral product, and this one's made by Oasis. Okay, and they even have a website, www.oasisfloral.com, if you want to buy this. It is the best, and it goes great with the raffia projects because it's wire, but it's covered with some brown raffia paper type substance, and it is great for holding projects together rather than just trying to tie something. It goes right around there, and you just twist it and it'll hold your projects together. So it's great for making corn dollies too. You'll also need a pair of scissors and some tacky glue. Might be helpful too. You might want to glue something in place so it doesn't slip around. Okay, so those are the supplies. I think I remembered everything, and we're ready to go. So I started out preparing my strips, and as far as how wide to make them, you can make them anywhere from 1 inch to a couple of inches. And I think this is going to work fine. I wanted to get the shape or the image, I guess, of the skeleton in there, though. So if I cut it too narrow, they probably wouldn't show up. And the way you're going to be using this is you're going to be tying a knot around the edge of the hoop, which I'll show you in a second. But as far as preparing it, you know, the ones that I've used before were about 10 inches long. So this is a long strip that I cut, and so I'm going to be cutting that in half. And that will be one of the strips that I'll be putting around the hoop. Now this is supposed to look raggedy, okay? It's like a little rag quilt that you see people make, rag dolls. And so to get the edge raggedy, you can just rip fabric. And so you'll start your cut. So I have my little skeleton right there, so I want to get him in it. And I'm going to try to make it about the same width as the other one. But remember, this is raggedy, okay? It's primitive, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And so I got it started, and this is going to speed things up a bit and also add to the raggedy effect. You just rip it, okay? And you're going to, the fabric will rip right along a line because of the way it's woven. Okay, so I'm going to finish cutting my strips. And I'll be right back. Okay, so just rip your strips. Okay, so I've got all my strips cut. I used 2 different fabrics. I've never made these with more than 2 fabrics because I just feel like 2 is good. You're going to do every other one when you put it on your hoop. And so it just seemed like that makes a nice pattern if you use 2 different fabrics. As far as how much fabric to use, I have made these using what they call a fat quarter. And if you go to your fabric store and you go to the quilting department, they might sell little folded squares that are folded up fabric, and they call them fat quarters. So it's basically a 1/4 yard with a little bit extra added. And I find that using a fat quarter, I always have enough fabric for making one of these projects and a little left over. So that should do. If you can't find fat quarters though, and especially for a holiday theme thing, you can just go order a 1/4 yard of any particular fabric. Okay, so I got my little dancing skeletons, and I also have my skulls that I'm going to be putting on my hoop. But before I do that, oh, and I did on this, for the 8-inch hoop, I made 10 of each fabric, so 20 strips in all. Okay, so I'll put those to one side because first of all, I want to take my yarn and I'm going to cover about half of the hoop with yarn, and I'm just going to be twisting it round and round, and I'm going to tie it on, and I'll do a double knot. So it'll stay on there nice, and you can always go back and trim off any extra yarn. For right now, I'm just going to do it like this, and then I will simply wind the yarn around the hoop. Okay, around and round and round. Simple, no special kind of way of winding around there. You're just going in and over and over. Okay, if you think of another way you want to do it, if you want to crochet it around there, feel free to make this your own project. Okay, that probably work somehow. I haven't figured that out, but anyway, I just wind it around. It's going to cover the hoop. I'm not going to make you watch me do this whole thing, but I've got it started. You can see how I have covered the hoop with this and push it in nice and tight. As far as how much, I'm sure this is going to be plenty. It really doesn't seem to take a whole lot of yarn. I've never really measured it though, so make sure you've got plenty. I wouldn't just do like this much, you know, you got to have plenty of yarn, but this is great for leftover yarn from other projects too. Okay, I'm going to get that done and I'll be right back. Okay, I've come to the end of tying or winding my yarn, and I'm just going to tie it off with a little knot here. And then I can, if I wanted to, I could put a little dot of glue on there to hold it in place, some of my tacky glue. Okay. Okay, so the dotted tacky glue on there. Hopefully it will cooperate and come out. There it is. Okay, it does dry clear, but I'm just going to dab it on there like that, hold it in place. Now, when you're wrapping, you want to make sure that you aren't overlapping the strands. Okay, you want it to be fairly smooth. This one was a little more challenging because I had a skinnier yarn, and you can see I still have a lot of this skein left over. So if you go out to buy the yarn, don't get more than a skein of yarn. You're going to have plenty left over. Okay, don't buy one of those giant bulky ones unless you're going to bulky skeins, you know, that's 5 pounds of yarn. I don't know, however they sell it. Because you're going to have a lot left over. So unless you want to knit a sweater or something, you know, you don't need that much yarn. One other thing that I wanted to mention about fabric, in case you're new to sewing, is that fabric often comes with what they call a selvage, and it'll have like this white line along there. Definitely cut that piece off, okay? Because that probably wouldn't look good if you mix that in your project. Okay, cut the selvage off. All right, so now I am ready to start putting on my pieces of fabric, and I'm going to alternate my design. Okay, so I have the skulls and I have the skeletons, so I need to decide which one do I want on either end. And by the way, I did mention that I cut 10 of each. You might want to cut 1 or 2 extras, just in case you need to add some more. Okay, so I've got my loop. I want to have this loopy part in the front. Okay, so let's see. I will need to have it facing down, okay, the loop, because I want to pass these 2 strands through that loop. So I'll have it on the top. Okay, so loop on the bottom, strands on the top, pass them through and pull it tight, and now this loopy part is on the top and the hanging part is on the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to continue doing that, and I will alternate skeleton, skull, skeleton, skull. So I want, remember, I always get mixed up on this part. So the loop at the bottom, the strands at the top, make sure you pulled them evenly. See how that's uneven? I'm going to pull them even, pass them through the loop, pull them tight. And then, push them close together. And adjust as you go along. You might want to get these nice and tight at the top here. Okay? Continue like that. Push them together. And I'll be right back. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so I put all of my fabric strips on. There's one thing I want to mention, and that is that you need to make sure that all of your knots are facing the same way, okay? It's just going to look better. It's kind of wonky if you get one this way and then flip the other way. So just, that's one thing I think you really need to do. Now, I like this side where the fabric goes across like this with the knot, okay? But if you decide that you prefer the other way, I mean, you can always flip it over. So far, right now, there's 2 sides to it, right? And then if you want to use this side instead, which looks perfectly fine, you will take the fabric and flip it around so that the right side shows. Because remember, there's a right side and a wrong side to the fabric. So I would try to get the right sides to face out as much as possible. But if they don't all do that, that's okay. That's part of the raggedy aesthetic on this project. Now there's going to be all kinds of loose threads, and so your next step will be to go around and neaten things up. And we wanted to try to get all the ends approximately the same length, when we did it, but you can have, Murphy's Law just not going to always work out that way. So you can go ahead and trim that up too if you want to make everything more even at the bottom. Okay, so you've got the hoop made, and the next step will be to make our little goddess lady. Okay, that's the side I want. All right, so we'll get ready to make the goddess. So here's my raffia, and this is the really messy part of this project. Raffia comes in a package neatly folded, and then it's your mission to try and figure out where the ends are. So this appears to be the top part where they folded it. If there's a lot of bends in it where it was folded over, don't worry, because that will relax as you're working with it. And you'll need to have your hoop handy and decide how much of this raffia you're going to use. Now, since I have this little hat, I'm going to want to make a head. So I'll take the top part here and show you where the head is going to be roughly. Right here. So I want it to be able to fit on there. So I think I'm going to use all of this raffia. And the raffia came in a package, and it had several of these skeins, I guess you would call it, a raffia. So you're going to have to kind of eyeball it and decide how much of that raffia you're going to use to make yours. Some of my little dolls, my little goddesses, have bigger heads than others, but that's okay. They just sort of came out the way they want it to come out. Let your projects take on their own personalities. Okay, but I want to try to get this as straight as I can. And this is the middle of this skein of raffia. Then I'm going to take my wonderful bind wire and cut a piece a few inches long. And just pull it through, twist it nice and tight. And now I'm going to kind of flip it down like this. Now with a corn dolly, you do the head a little differently, but this will work, having it this way. Just pull it down so that the knot, this was through here like that. And you're going to smooth it and make a little head, okay? Then you're going to get some more bind wire and make the neck on the doll, okay? And since the raffia is a lot smaller than a corn husk, you can smooth it out pretty easily. Okay, so another couple of inches of the wire. And here is her neck. Remember, all these loose ends can be trimmed up when you're done. And honestly, you just have to keep at it and show it who's boss, and try to mold this creation with your hands. Okay, so I have her head. Now I'm going to pull some off the sides. For her arms. Not too much. She doesn't have very fat arms. You want to try to get the arms to be about the same size. So compare them. Okay, see how I have her arms pulled out? This is the main body right here. And I just pulled the arms out on either side. And it often helps to have like a clip or something to hold things together, but I'm just going to take an extra piece of bind wire to hold things in place, because this stuff will drive you crazy if it goes all over the place, gets in your way. Okay, so I'm putting the arms up here for right now to keep them out of the way. Okay, put them up there. Like that. Hope their arms. All right, and here she is so far. Then we're going to make a, you see I've got a loop of raffia right here. It's coming from somewhere, but I'm just going to pull it right in here and smooth it out. It's almost like sculpting it. Okay, now I'm going to make her waist. Another piece of bind wire. And we'll twist it. And I'm going to make it go around another time. Make it nice and strong. And then I can go back and trim it. Oh, see, that wasn't tight enough. I'm going to have to do it over. It's okay. Just stop and go back and do it over again if you need to. If you don't like the way something looks, just take it apart, go back and redo it. Nobody does it perfectly the first time. Okay, so I kind of got our waist going there. Also, any kind of wonky raffia that's sticking out, you can always go back and turn it off, trim it off. Okay, so you can see that here is her waist, and now she's got her skirt. And so the reason I've still got my hoop here is I want to measure and see about how long I want to make her skirt. Okay, so the arms are going to be up about like that. Your skirt. If you want a really long skirt that hangs lower than the fabric on your hoop, that's your choice. But I'm going to cut it off so that it's not quite so long. And save these little extra pieces of raffia because you can make things out of them. So I'm going to cut her skirt to right about here, I think. It's better to not cut off enough at first than to cut off too much. Okay, so that's probably going to be fine. And see the huge mess I've made? Okay, very messy stuff. But it's also great for this kind of a project. All right, so now I'm going to form her arms using my bind wire. And this is how she's going to be hanging on to the hoop at the top. So I need a fairly long piece of bind wire for this. Looks like it's at least 18 inches. Okay, so I will release this. And I'm going to make her arms. This stuff really has a mind of its own, doesn't it? Okay, so here's one arm. And I'm going to start down here at her shoulder. And there's a loose piece of bind wire. I think I might join it to that. Or just tie it around there. And I'm going to wrap this raffia so that it makes and it makes arms. Okay, I'm going to do one on each side. I'm going to wrap it around here. And I'll be doing it this close together. If you can see how I've done that, I'm going to just be wrapping it around. And I'm going to continue to do this, wrapping the bind wire around the raffia. And I'll come back and show you what that looks like when I'm done. Okay, so you can see that's about as long as I'm going to want one of her arms to be. And then I'm going to do the other arm. Now what I could do is, it would be easier to just start over back down here and start wrapping until they are about the same length. Okay, so I'm going to start wrapping this side. I'll be right back. So I've got them just about the same length. I'm going to take this leftover wire and wrap it around to join both of the hands together. You want to try to get the arms about the same length, or they are not gonna hang straight, and she'll look kind of lopsided. Okay, so you can see I gotta try and get her straight. Get her straight. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this around. And then I'm going to leave this little extra here for later because I'm going to make a hanger on the top. But I'm going to cut this off now. Get rid of this extra, but hang on to it. As I said, you can make stuff out of it. I save everything. Now, on most of the ones I've made, I had left out some at the top for the hair. And this little witchy, she's going to have a hat on, so she doesn't necessarily have to have hair hanging out. But if you wanted to add some hair, what I would do is I would pull out some of this raffia on top, and it will make hair. Okay, so yeah, it's going to take me a while to get her hair out. So I think I will make some hair. Normally I would have just, before I made her neck, I would have pulled out some hair on top. And you can do a different colored hair, but that's for a whole nother video, okay, because that's pretty tricky. So I'm going to work with this to try to get a little bit of hair out. Sorry I forgot to do that, but she doesn't have to have hair. Or you could glue some yarn on top if you wanted to. It's up to you. Okay, so I'm going to work with this for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm coaxing a little bit of the raffia out of the back here. It seems to be the easiest way. And in fact, this may be an easier way to do hair because you just want to make sure you don't grab any that's tied up with the arms, because it does tend to get in the way while you're working on this. So I just pulled it out of here and I was able to add the hair that way. Okay, so I think that's about all the hair I want. She's going to be kind of a wild and crazy witchy anyway, so there's her hair. Okay, so this is the part I think of as the fun part, where you get to really decorate her. And I'm going to give her a top for her dress. I'll be making the dress out of ribbon. And I've put this behind her neck. And I've got the rest of the ribbon hanging down. This is probably at least 12 inches of ribbon. And then I'm going to crisscross them in the front, like this. And then I will crisscross them in the back and bring them around and just tie the ribbon at her waist in the front. Okay, so I'm going to tie a knot there. And then I'm going to let this part hang down, and it will be part of her skirt, okay? Now to make more of her skirt, I'm going to take, I have this skinnier ribbon, which is going to be more like a waistband. And I have some orange ribbon. I think I'm going to cut this in half, make that shorter. You get to be the designer on this, okay? It's up to you how you want it to look. And, oh, I have this other spiderwebby ribbon here. And I'm also going to cut that in half. And I'm going to make a little, going to put these on here, probably alternate, okay, orange, black, orange, black. And I'm going to be tying them the same way we did these little knots before. I'm going to be tying them to the spidery ribbon. So, take my first one, I'm going to put the loop underneath and pull the two other pieces, the straight pieces through, and I'm going to be attaching them to the spider ribbon, okay? So I'm going to put the other three on there, and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, so you can see I've made like a little skirt for her, and I've tied those ribbons on there, and I'm going to wrap it around her waist, and there's enough here to, let's see, how do I want this to bring it back around in front? And then you can see the little spiders there too. Let's see if that works. I'm designing as I go here. And I'm going to want to tie it double so that it doesn't come loose. And now you can see that the ribbon has made a nice little skirt for her. And I'm going to be trimming off some of the really long pieces and adjusting things. Yeah, she's starting to look like something here, okay? Now I have my little pinnacle here somewhere. I decided, oh, here it is. Okay, good. Now I could put that on her waist, or I could get some of that yarn and make her a little necklace, which kind of sounds like a good idea. The thing about these kind of holes on a necklace, if you just thread the yarn or string through that hole, it's gonna hang crooked. So a really good thing to do is to make a loop. And it's that same kind of a tie that you did on the rest of it. See? You're going to get that through the back like that, and take these two strands and pull them through the loop, and then it will hang flat, okay? And now I can tie this around her neck, and that can be her little necklace. So, okay, so I have got her necklace on her, and I've taken her hair and I've kind of parted it on either side of her head. And then I'm going to take some tacky glue to glue her hat on, okay? And I'll be able to apply it to her to her hat. Okay, a few dots all around. And then I'll put her hat. This has a seam, okay, so make sure you put the seam at the back where it won't show. And then you want to try to just squeeze that on there. Hat was a little big for her, but it's kind of cute. Kind of cute that way. All right, and that'll need to dry. So it looks like this arm has kind of come unwound a little bit, so it's perfectly fine to go back and put a little more of the bind wire around it. And then I'm going to show you how to attach her to the wreath. Okay, so remember how I said to leave some extra wire here? It's because you want to use it to attach it to the hoop. You want to try and find the center of the hoop. And then you're going to just wrap this wire around the hands and attach it to the hoop. Now, I usually put some kind of a little decoration up here because I always feel like this doesn't look very nice. And you can use ribbon, you can use some of your fabric. I actually had some leftover strips here, and tie that up there if you want to, or create some kind of a little decoration right here. And then before you put that on, you want to make a loop out of more bind wire to make a hanger, okay? So that's about as big as I want it. And I'm going to twist these together. And I've got a hanging loop here. And I'm going to feed this through like that. Doesn't want to cooperate. I'm trying to get this through the loop. Okay, it's hung up on something. Try it again. One more time. Day in the life of a crafter, right? Okay. I want the loop at the back. Okay, here we go. And then I will twist this around like that. I think I probably do this differently every time. So now I got a loop for hanging. And so I just want to put some sort of a little decoration right here. Okay, I'm going to go see if I have some ribbon, but you can see that she hangs very nicely there in her little hoop. And I'll be back in just a second to finish her off. Okay, so I just happen to have this really cool Halloween ribbon in my basket. Don't ever throw ribbon away, never. And so I looped it underneath, and I'm going to pull these other two pieces of ribbon through. I'm sure that knot has some kind of a name. Just don't know what it is. And I'm going to pull it tight, and then I will tie this in a bow. And the top will be decorated. I always like to, you know, try to turn my ribbon so the design is on the outside, of course. Okay, and here she is. Wow, I'm going to hang her up and I'll show you what she looks like. So once you've finished your little Halloween witchy lady wall hanging, you want to hang her up and see if everything is the right length, if you want to trim anything anywhere. A couple of tips. If you can't find bind wire, which I highly recommend, you can either use strips of raffia to join everything together. It's very slippery and it might be hard to do. Or you could try to find some kind of florist wire and then wrap it in raffia to cover up the wire, because usually it's a green color, which probably isn't going to work. But anyway, I kind of like her. I might sell her in my Etsy store or keep her and make another one. But this was a really fun project. This is not the kind of thing that you can do in while the baby's taking a nap or anything like that, but it can be done in stages. So if you want to do that, it does take a few hours to complete it. So if you have any questions, please post them in the comments below, and come visit my Etsy store if you would like to buy one of these, or if you'd like to look at some of my other projects that I have there for sale. And I will see you next time.